Hello, my name's John, this is my classic Tyranid Screamer Killer, and you're watching Wargames Models and Other Hobbies. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to start painting my classic Warhammer 40,000 Carnifex, the Screamer Killer, and I'm going to try something a little bit different first before I go down the route of either painting it a specific Hive Fleet colour or so on. I've had some great suggestions on the channel to either paint it the same colour as my Hive Fleet, I'll put an image up on the screen, and also paint it as the classic paint scheme. I'll put those up on the screen as well. But what I've decided to give a go to begin with is painting it up in a similar fashion to the Screamer Killer artwork by Mark Gibbons. I'll put that on the screen now. So what I'm going to be using to do that, as you can see, it's already primed white. I'm going to use some Nuln Oil, and that's it. I'm going to see how it goes. I might have to put some white highlights and things on it later on, but I'm going to start painting it just with Nuln Oil and see what kind of finish I can get. Worst case scenario, I can strip it, repaint it, doesn't matter. This is just going to be an experiment. What I've decided to do first is start by painting the head so I can see if this is going to kind of work as a miniature in itself. So, let's get started. So what I'm going to do, I think to begin with, let's just hold it right there. I'm going to zoom in. So, there we go. So you can see. Now, I don't know how this is going to go. It is an experiment. But let's get started. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can actually see a bit more. Let's go the other way. Okay, so let's start in the back here. So I had the inspiration to do this because I happened to find the original artwork online, and I've never done a truly black and white model before, and I thought imitating this artwork would work really quite nicely. Let's try and get that in focus. So the plan, just in this video, is to build up the colour with the Nuln Oil. I wanted to get, there we go, get it in focus for you. So this might work, it might be a terrible mistake, I just don't know yet. But I am just going to build it up bit by bit. And see exactly how it comes out. So I've just got the artwork to the side as well, so I can just kind of have a little look. So, apologies if I don't talk much while I'm doing this. Just trying to get a sense of what I want it to actually look like. So, concentrating a little bit while I do this. Now it might take a few coats building it up as I go, but that's alright. And I might have to come back to this with some white after the Nuln Oil has dried, but I don't know yet. We shall see how it turns out. Right, I'm going to zoom out so it's a little bit small on the screen for you, but it's going to stay on the screen. So I'm putting this on in a very similar way to how I would normally put a wash on, but what I want to make sure is I don't flood areas too much. Or maybe that's what I want to do, I don't know. I'm experimenting, we'll see how it turns out at the end. To all intents and purposes, it's just going to be a model covered in Nuln Oil to look similar to the artwork, but depending on how it works, I'm either gonna just stick with the Nuln Oil. It's quite nice just painting with one paint. Like I said, add some white and other colours. Right, let's go back to the back of the head. So I mean, what I'm looking to do is apply paint, let it dry, apply paint, let it dry. Funny that, it's what you do when you're painting. But kind of want to get a little bit more I don't know, I want it to look as if it's been painted to match the artwork. So I think it is going to be a few kind of sessions of the Nuln Oil and build it up over time, but we'll see how it gets started. I realise I'm kind of waffling a little bit while I do this. I'm trying to think about how to increase the depth and tone in certain areas. Right, yeah, I'm starting to... I mean, it's not really a complicated paint scheme, but I am enjoying this process. Let's okay. Okay, let's go on to a bit of the carapace. Have a quick look at the reference image. What I don't want to do is get loads of the wash in places where it doesn't need to be. But likewise, I want to make sure I put it in places where it's meant to be. Sorry if this is going out of focus while I do it. Now, I remember seeing this model for the first time way back when it was released, when I was a kid. And I really liked the style of it. I liked the alien look of it. It wasn't normal. It had a really, well, an alien look, and it was before the kind of the distinct Tyranid look had been decided. So you can see from the head there is that kind of Gene Stealer style dome, and the back has some elements of the Space Hulk Gene Stealers. But I remember seeing it, and it was, well, it's almost a terrifying model because it's so alien. I mean, it does have its quirks, and it does, to be honest, now when you look at it, look a little bit strange. It is definitely a Marmite model. You either love it or you hate it. I'm going to do a little bit more on the carapace and the back, and then get back to the head for a bit, just to see exactly what it looks like. I don't want to do a ridiculously long video on this. But I quite like the way that with the Nuln Oil you can start kind of splodging it on in places and that kind of thing. It's loose on its base. Don't know if this is going to be the permanent base that this is going to be on. I mean, if this works and I like the way that it looks, I may make some sort of a custom base for it. But we shall see. I think I will come back to it with some white to just highlight a few sections and that kind of thing. But I'm quite happy with the way this is starting. Yeah, apologies if I keep going out of shot. Actually, I'm going to take it off the handle. It's big enough that I can hold it. Okay. Right, let me finish off that section on the back, and then I think it's going to be time to let this dry and have a little bit of a review. Okay, I mean, it might be quite nice. If this does work, Might be quite nice to revisit some of the other artwork that Mark did and kind of bring it up as black and white models. I remember when I painted my Renegade Ogryns, that was a very limited palette as well, which kind of worked. Okay. Alright, what I'm going to do for now, I think I'm going to let that dry. Let's have a quick look at it. And I'll bring up on screen the artwork itself. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. So yeah, obviously, excuse me, at the moment, it's just that Nuln Oil on top of the white base coat. But I do like the way it's starting to look. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to let this dry and I'm going to start working on a few more bits. Okay, so it's been drying for a little bit, and I know at the beginning of the video I said I was only going to use the Nuln Oil, but I am going to use some Corax White to just knock back some areas before I go back in with that Nuln Oil. But I am going to use one brush. I'm not going to use any more brushes, just the one that I've started with. Now I want to make sure this is in camera while I work. So my aim now is just to pick out some details on the head itself, and then I'll be able to add more of that wash Nuln Oil after the white is dry. But we'll see how it turns out. I'm kind of stippling it on here on the side of the head. I don't want to lose where I've put in that previous colour, but I also want to make sure I start kind of getting a little bit more kind of definition in places. So we'll see how it turns out. Apologies if I don't talk that much while I'm doing this. It's one of those little projects that is quite cathartic to do and play around with. And it's my hobby. And I don't have to talk all the time while I'm doing the stuff. But hopefully you're finding this video interesting. It's quite nice doing little challenges, and while the Nuln Oil was drying, I left it for about half an hour. I didn't want to use the hairdryer and force it. Wasn't really in the mood for loud noises. I was thinking about how to base this. I've come to the decision, if it works, I'm going to create a base with paper and then mount it on there and probably put some inks on the paper itself and so on. So I'm really quite liking this. Now the Corax white isn't a brilliant white, so my aim is, once I've done another ink wash, another non-oil wash over the top of this, is when I finish the whole model, is to tie it all together with a brilliant white of some kind. Because also the other key thing, inside the mouth itself on the artwork, let me just pop it back up on the screen, you can see how it's really bright in there. So I don't necessarily want a lot of Nuln Oil in there. I kind of want to make as bright a white as possible. And I think I can accomplish that with some other white paint that I've got. But for now, I'm just going to stick with the Corax. Okay, I'm liking how that's turning out. I'm going to expand a little bit onto the carapace. Just to get some colour in there. Colour, some white. Although white is all colours, isn't it? Oh, make sure it's on screen. Apologies if there's a lot of that off screen. I've got to put on my bench here, my workspace, a little marker for where the camera can see, so I can keep a track without having to constantly look up at the camera, which is what I have to do at the moment. If anyone's got any suggestions, please drop a comment. I'm really open to suggestions on better filming methods and that kind of thing. Okay. Okay, that's starting to go the direction that I want it to. Right, I am going to change my brush to a smaller one, if I can find one in my drawer. I need to get a whole load of new brushes soon. I think that's something that I'm going to look at over my summer break. So I will talk about this in my hobby roundup this month, but over August I am going to have a bit of a break from making videos and all social media, just a bit of a kind of a nice rest and relax without the worry of having to produce stuff. So just give me time to enjoy my hobby. I might make some content over that time, I might not, but I will be back after my summer break. So I hope you all stick around while that's happening. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get a bit more of the Nuln Oil, and I'm going to use this small brush now to put it on a few places. I'm not too worried that I've just put the Corax White on. It's quite a warm day, so it's not going to take too long to dry. I just want to get this in a few places to increase the tonal values in certain areas, and then we'll have a look at how it's going. Apologies again, I don't know if that was all on screen while I was doing that. And also, apologies if you can hear a fly buzzing around. It's just come in the room. And it's really quite annoying, but hey ho. I suppose the other thing with this experiment, if it does go horrifically wrong, I don't like the outcome, I could do a little bit of experimentation with contrast paints or their equivalents, as I will have quite a lot of highlights and lowlights already on this model, but I am hoping it's going to work out, as I'd really like to try the idea of creating a base with paper, and I've got a few other ideas that I want to work on with that. So it's getting to the point where I don't want to put too much ink in places, too much of the wash. I want it to dry in certain places so I can then continue this later on. So let's just put a little bit more on there. Find a few spots on the head to put in. Right. Hopefully, most of that was on camera for you. Here it is so far. So the artwork inspired Screamer Killer. I'm going to build this up with quite a few layers of washes and whites and so on, but I am quite liking the way this is starting to look on here. So, if you'd like to see more of this experiment, please drop a like and a comment. It's much appreciated to hear your views. If you've got any suggestions, likewise, drop a comment. Okay, so at the end of the video, I will put a picture of this next to the original artwork, so you get an idea of how it's coming along. And I haven't really got much else to say for this video, apart from thank you to all of my subscribers. If you're not subscribed, please consider hitting that little button. But for now, thanks for tuning in. My name's John, and you've been watching War Games, Models, and Other Hobbies.